And welcome back. So we're going to talk today a lot about prioritization. Okay. We can't build every feature that comes up, every feature that's requested from clients, partners, or internal stakeholders. And so we have to decide how we prioritize our time, right? We don't have unlimited time. We don't have unlimited resources at our disposal to do anything and everything. So there's got to be a driving force behind it and a way to figure out what we're going to do, right? And so we started with the end in mind, going back to the very first set of lessons around the goal. And so as a recap, the goal for Figma is to get 10% of free users converting to paid users. Okay, so I'm still anchoring everything in that. And that really speaks to this top section here, viability. The decision that we make from a product standpoint on what we build has to be viable. And that may sound really abstract and subjective, but it's not. There's two ways that you can look at viability, right? You can say that this is viable to hitting our goal, which is the way I'm looking at it right now, or you can say that there's a general return on investment. Okay, so if I'm paying an engineer $100,000 and it takes them paying them that per year, right? And it takes 6 months to finish this project. If I'm only paying one engineer to do it, then it's a $50,000 project. Okay, just bear with me. I know I'm being very general and simplistic. So the thing is if I don't get $50,000 in return, I've lost money on the project, right? But if I'm getting, $50,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue, then yeah, there's a very clear, very clear return on investment. So that's what we talk about in viability. Is what we're doing going to be supported, or are we going to lose money on it, right? You may make a strategic decision that says, we're not going to see any direct revenue impact on this, but this may be a UX tweak that we could subjectively say is going to improve business results in certain areas, whether it's retention or what have you. And those are very real things and real conversations that you're going to have is how do we measure viability? That's something you need to figure out. How are we going to measure whether this is a viable decision? And how are we going to track that success metric, right? What is that success metric that we're going to track to be able to judge if we were successful or not, right? So that's the essence of viability. And again, the way I'm doing it here for Figma is basing it on the product goal that we had. So the product goal is 10% conversion from free to paid users. That's how I'm looking at viability. We'll cover desirability and feasibility a little later. And at this point, as we go through prioritization, we're going to go through prioritization, and then we're going to get into desirability, feasibility, and usability. So the next 4 sections are going to be very intertwined. So as you go through this, it's going to feel not complete in this crafting solutions section, but it's going to become complete throughout the next 3 sections. There's a little bit of back and forth there to figure out, 1, are we going to move forward on this? And 2, does it meet these 3 criteria? So bear with me, try to absorb this in. You may need to watch through these videos twice. Hopefully not. Hopefully it's succinct enough to where it makes sense and is very actionable for you. So what's the call to action here? The call to action is we just finished user research where we uncovered many different problems, right? It may be one problem we really uncovered. It may be 5, but we need to prioritize that. And we need a framework to prioritize that, okay? So the RICE framework is a really popular one. It's not the only one. If you look up product prioritization frameworks online, there's several. Okay, RICE is the one I'm going to use here. And RICE is typically a good one for most scenarios. It doesn't fit every circumstance, so I'm not going to say it's a one-size-fits-all, but it's good for many different prioritization situations, right? So let's break this down. What does RICE mean? Well, I have it all laid out here for you, so if you read ahead and didn't listen to the last 30 seconds of monologue, then you already know. But basically, reach is how many users is this going to touch, right? How many users are going to see this? How many users is this applicable for, right? Then impact is what is the value to those users? One example is what is their likelihood to convert, right? If it's valuable and they got to pay for it, then the likelihood to convert is going to be higher. So that's how we measure impact. Confidence is how confident are you on a percentage basis, 0 to 100, that this effort is going to be successful, right? And it's really data driven. Qualitative and quantitative data feeds into it, and we're going to go over that throughout the desirability, usability, and feasibility sections. And really, feasibility goes to the fourth one, is effort, because development really owns the definition of this. They really own the essence of how long is this going to take? Is this a small effort, a medium effort, or a large effort? And then all the different things that go into that. And we're going to go over feasibility in a little more depth later on in another section, but this is really development owned. So their input is incredibly necessary throughout this process, and trying to decide which problem you attack first and prioritize without talking to your developers is not a good idea. Make sure that your development team is involved at each step of the process to make a proper decision here. And there's math involved. So if you don't like math, I'm sorry, but it should be pretty basic math that can be done with a calculator. But the way that you calculate the RICE score is reach times impact times confidence divided by effort. Okay. And there's probably other ways you could do it too, but this is kind of the typical way it's calculated. And so reach is a pure number. So it's how many users, right? And you keep this consistent because you have one user base for one product, right? So if one problem is going to reach 350 users and the other problem is going to reach 1 million users, well, you could tell the score is probably going to be a lot bigger for the one that reaches 1 million users. Impact is a little more subjective, and so we usually rank this on a 1 to 5 scale. So if you have, if you're measuring between 500 or 1,000 users, and the impact on the 100 users, right, or 500 users is 1, and then the impact, let's say it's 100 users that you're competing against, so one's 5x more users, but it's an impact of 1, one's 100 users, but impact of 5, then as far as reach and impact go, those things kind of cancel out, right? So then you go to confidence. What's your confidence? Well, if the first one, you're 50% confident because you have limited data and you're not getting much user feedback on it, then it's probably going to be lower than if you have 90% confidence because you have a lot of quantitative data, usage metrics, qualitative data from user interviews. So that's how these things end up dividing themselves up and figuring themselves out to what's priority. And then over effort, right? So effort's a big one because if it's something that's low-hanging fruit that can be implemented from a development standpoint very easily, that's probably going to bring that RICE score way up, as opposed to something that has really good reach, really good impact, and you're pretty confident about it, but it's going to take you a year to finish, right? That's extremely effort intensive and very costly from a resource standpoint. So all things to think about, and that's how you use the framework. That's how you break it down. What we're going to cover kind of in this section really covers reach and impact well. Confidence is going to take some follow-up work. Confidence goes to some of those questions I asked earlier, so that we can go back to that. So understanding some data, right? Like who's using this now? How often are they using it? So I kind of teased this in a previous video, and we're going to go back to some of these questions and add some more questions to really figure out if we can understand where our confidence level is. And I'll give some suggestions of other ways that you can gauge things like desirability and value and those things in another section. So what I came to in my own RICE framework is the prioritized problem and persona was Jocelyn, the animated agency designer. Her problem was having to pay for other tools to get pro-level animation to finish her Figma prototypes, that very intense workflow. And I want you to include a why. Whenever you're documenting what you've prioritized and who you prioritized it for, understanding why you did it will really help the hiring manager or whoever's looking at your portfolio really get inside of your mind and understand your ability to think strategically and think in a way that kind of mirrors what we've been trying to do this whole time, right? What are we anchoring these things to? And how you connect those dots together, right? So this is important. So the reason I prioritize this one is because this problem ties directly to a user's pain of having to pay for additional design tools to finish designs. If a user is already paying for this functionality in separate products, they would be highly likely to pay for the same functionality in one singular product. And solving this problem ties directly back into the stated product goal, right? And the way this does this, right, if they're paying 10, 12 bucks for another product, when they can pay 10, 12 bucks for this one product that they're already using, and they can eliminate one product in a difficult addition to their workflow, then they're going to still pay that one price, but just for one singular product, and eliminate um, the disparate products that they're using. Okay. It also goes to the vision and mission, which I might add this to this slide, but going back to the vision, right? Let's go back up to it. So they want to be the go-to place for everyone to create, communicate through design. Help the entire team create, test, ship better designs faster. Well, if they're having to use other products and it extends the time of their workflow, faster is gone. It's out the window because it's taking more time. And they're not the go-to place because they're having to go to other places, which is contradictory to the vision and the mission. So this becomes a very salient problem to solve in a lot of ways. Not only the goal, but the problem directly contradicts the vision and mission. So I'm extremely excited about it. And I hope as you've done your user research and have gotten a list of problems and start prioritizing them, you get really excited about this too, because this is where we really get to have fun. The hard part is done. Now the fun part begins, where we start prioritizing and figuring out how to solve their problem. This is the part that everybody loves. It's the part that everyone naturally gravitates to, even before understanding the context behind people's problems. So great job getting through the user research. I know you did a great job on it, and I'm excited to see what the outcomes of your projects are, what you've prioritized, and how you solve the problem. So with that, let's keep going, because there's not only one solution to a problem. There can be multiple solutions, and they could all be right. So how do we decide what we do? Well, that takes us to the next series of videos. So let's get started.